Good evening, I'm Jason Myers, and welcome to the Fearless 30, brought to you by our friends over at the Wide World of Wings. And joining us here tonight on our first in-studio episode, the co-owner of Fearless Fighting Championship, Mr. Doug Burr. Doug, how are you tonight, sir?
I am doing good. How are you doing?
Doing very, very good. The point of the show was kind of to sit back, talk a little bit about, of course, Fearless Fighting Championship, and also talk about everything that is MMA, because it's one of those untapped resources that are growing so fast in the United States that I don't think we have enough local shows to talk about these kind of things.
No, you're right. And I think from a local standpoint, we're still not out there. You know, nationally, everybody knows the UFC. But locally, you know, there's a lot of little companies. We're one of them that are growing, and we're growing rapidly. And it's time for people to hear a little bit more about us.
Let's take a step back. And of course, you and your brother Dave started this company. Talk about what brought you to FFC. How did this whole company begin?
Oh, boy. It was over a couple of beers, as a lot of businesses start. Beer and pretzels at a local pub is really what, and that's really the truth. You know, we have been big MMA fans since, like a lot of guys might say, since the UFC started. Both wrestled and beat each other up as kids. But we sat in the bar one day, and we'd been to lots of shows. We had been to tons of little shows all around Wisconsin and some in Minnesota. And we enjoyed them, but we always said, there's something missing. There's something missing in this show that we can add. I was a DJ for years, so making a spectacle out of things that really weren't a spectacle was kind of my specialty.
Right.
So taking the fighting and mixed martial arts and turning it into, I guess, a spectacle and a show and not just a fight itself, I knew we could do better than what we witnessed. And that was really kind of how it started. We just went from there.
Now, of course, your first show, which was out at Westman Arena, and we'll address going back to Westman in this next show, you guys didn't even own a cage. You guys actually had to rent a cage. It was pretty raw when you first started.
We rented everything. I mean, we rented chairs and tables and speaker cables and mics. And the cage, yeah, we had nothing. We just did it all on a whim, and we thought, we knew what we wanted to do. We didn't know how to get there. But here we are, you know, 15 shows later, and each show's gotten a little better, I believe. And yeah, it was a real raw show. And you know, anybody, and I talk to them all the time, fans that have been with us for every single show, with us from FFC 1 till our last show, and they can't believe that. They say they keep getting better. They say, I don't know how you guys do it, but they keep getting better.
You know, it's interesting because when you think about how MMA has grown, unfortunately, we kind of touched about this. People think if you're not in the UFC, you're not getting good quality fights, and that's not the case, because over 15 shows that you guys have put on, you've seen some really world-class fights inside that octagon.
No, and I'm going to take this a step farther. Not even our shows, all the local MMA shows, some of the best fights that no one ever hears about happen at a local levels, because guys are trying to make names for themselves. And they're fighting every fight like it's their last fight and trying to prove something. And nothing against the money machine that is now the UFC, obviously. Right. Guys there have contracts, and they're fighting to stay in the sport. And I mean, you've seen it now happening a little bit with Dana White changing their bonus structure around in the UFC now, adding more bonuses, because fights are getting stagnant and fights are getting boring. Guys are fighting not to not lose and not necessarily to win and knock guys out and submit guys. So you don't see that at the local level. Guys come out hungry and a lot of times come out swinging, and they're exciting fights.
I'm Jason Myers, and you're in with the Fearless 30 here on Cat 7, brought to you by friends over at Wide World of Wings. And we're talking with Doug Burr, one of the co-owners of Fearless Fighting Championship. And it's very interesting because I got to imagine, since you've been doing the fights, you've run into all different types of people.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride. You know what? It's like any business or venture you take on. You meet people you really like, and you meet people that I can't stand, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Right.
But for the vast majority of my time spent in mixed martial arts here, it's a great, knit, tight family. It's just an awesome group of people. And the kind of the bad rap that mixed martial arts got when it first came out is that they were all uneducated thugs, and we were all uneducated promoters. And it's just not that way. There's just a good bunch of people that are hardworking and want to train and make a name for themselves.
Son of a bitch!
Welcome back to the Fearless 30 here on Cat 7. And as you can tell, sometimes you have some set difficulties. And if you look behind us, you notice, wait a minute, what happened to that sign behind us? Well, it fell. We'll get it fixed. It's the first show. This is the kind of things that happen. We're here with Doug Burr, co-owner of Fearless Fighting Championship. And, you know, as we were talking a little bit about the sport growing, I think one of the big things that you're seeing is a lot of non-commissioned shows are kind of getting pushed out because people want to be safe in this sport. I mean, at the end of the day, it's two people in a cage fighting to make the other one say, I don't want to fight anymore, or make him go to sleep, or knocking him out. But the commission has stepped in and they've done a great job. And for the headache that it can be to go through, really, you're extending the life of a fighter, and you're also saving a promotion that can cost you guys a giant lawsuit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, we started watching these hometown shows back in it was 92, 93, 94, in that range, in some small cities. And I won't name names or any of the promotions, but it was scary to the point of people getting hurt. And, you know, that's when we got into it, I said, this is exactly what we don't want. And, you know, I'm the first to admit we had some shows that were unsanctioned when we started, only because we had to. We were on a tribal grounds, and they didn't want the commission involved. We took all the steps necessary to protect the fighters the same way a commission would have, even though we were uncommissioned. But absolutely, it's all about fighter safety. You know, 99.9% of these guys are not going to make it to the big show. That's just a fact of life. Doesn't mean they're not going to be successful at whatever level they do this or take it to. But we got to make sure that they can continue to do other things in life, and you know, fighting, they can look back on it and say what a great experience it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even more now so, you know, as being one of your matchmakers, you know, you find it very hard to even find fighters that want to accept non-commissioned fights, just for the fact that it doesn't look bad on their record, but if that fighter has any intention on kind of stepping up to the next league, whether it be UFC, Bellator, whatever it may be, it looks better when you have commissioned shows.
Absolutely.
Fights.
And from a promotional standpoint, we look better having commissioned fights as well. And it just, you know what, it legitimizes the whole sport in general. You don't see them anymore. I don't know if there's any even out there anymore in our local area. But, you know, some of the casinos, they still don't want the big government in their business at the casino level on tribal grounds. And that's probably the only instances where you're going to see some non-commissioned shows taking place.
Once again, welcome to the Fearless 30 here on Cat 7. I am Jason Myers, and joining me, my guest tonight is Mr. Doug Burr, co-owner of Fearless Fighting Championship. And we need to address it because you guys, of course, started out your first two shows in Westman Arena. Of course, you and your brother both from Superior, Wisconsin. You went to high school there, so it was a natural fit for you guys to bring MMA to Superior, Wisconsin. Now, you got offered FFC 3 to go to Black Bear Casino. And it seemed like we had a pretty good relationship, and there was some falling out after this last show. And I think due to the fans out there that are watching this, we probably should address this.
Correct. Yeah, no, I don't think it's anything we can't talk about. To touch back, yeah, we had a great first couple of shows at Westman Arena. And kind of mutually got hooked up through some other friends that did some promotions through Black Bear, and got to talking with them, and they were looking at bringing a company in to do some mixed martial arts fights, and we signed a one-fight deal with them, and another one-fight deal with them for FFC 4, and next thing you know, we were at FFC 14, and things did decline over the past 2 or 3 shows there. Lots of new management and policy changes, and like any business, new faces and bodies equals sometimes some headaches, and I think that's really all it was with us, is maybe their vision of what MMA is in fighting was not the same as what ours, you know, was. So I just really think it was a difference of opinion, and you know, sometimes the almighty dollar gets in the way a little bit, and I think that was part of it for Black Bear Casino as well as us. So.
What was the reception like when you called the folks back at Westman and said, we want to come home?
They were dancing in the hallways because we actually had a show booked there in between back in 2012, I want to say, that we ended up having to cancel because Wisconsin's only been commissioned through mixed martial arts. They've had a boxing commission forever, but the portion of the combat sports commission that regulates mixed martial arts is relatively new. And when we did our first show there, they were very unorganized, and any shows they were doing were way down in southern Wisconsin. So they didn't have the people to give to Fearless Fighting for us to make our show happen. So a month or 6 weeks out from that show, we had to pull the plug because we were going to start spending some real money on advertising and promotions and booking fighters, and the commission couldn't guarantee us that they had all the proper people, doctors and medics and ambulance and referees that were willing to come up to this far north. But with that said, they have been way better to work with now. Everything is in place for the show already, and we're 7 weeks out, 6-7 weeks out, I guess. We're ready to go.
You know, as people out there that think about starting some sort of fighting organization, I'll ask you 2 questions. What's been the hardest decision you've had to make as a fight promoter? And what's the scariest decision you've had to make as a fight promoter? Probably the hardest, well, they might be the same answer for both. And truthfully, it was when we decided to continue on with this after FFC1, and that was to spend some money and buy the equipment and now we own all of our sound and lights and cage and there was a sizable investment, and then vehicles and trailers to transport everything. And it's, I always say the circuses, and we bring the circus when we show up, pull a couple trailers in and all the cronies come and we start unloading. But it was just like any business, when you pull that trigger to do it, it's scary, I could tell you 100 stories about fights that I've been scared of booking, because for me, and no one, and I don't think any fighters will ever tell you that I don't care about them, because I have had fights till the last day that happened that I was cringing about, that I didn't necessarily want to see happen because I didn't think they were good matchups. And sometimes we did, you as our matchmaker, myself and my brother, sometimes we'll sit and look at a fight on paper and say, 2 of the 3 of us think it's the greatest fight in the world, and the third one says, I hate that fight, this guy's going to get killed. Right.
But that's how we work together so well and try to work things out. But again, bottom line is fighter safety.
Once again, welcome to the Fearless 30 here on Cat 7, sponsored by our friends over at Wide World Wings. And of course, coming up on April the 12th, Fearless Fighting Championship 15 makes its way back to Westman Arena in Superior, Wisconsin. And it's a stacked card. We're very, very excited about this. And there's some great fights, but there's also been some headaches on this card too, just like any other card you put together. Fights fall through. And as much as we love the commission, man, it is not easy getting through the commission, especially some of the fighters.
No, there's, as much work as we have to do with the fighters themselves, have a bunch of hoops to jump through as well. Again, it's all for fighter safety, and that's what counts. But it is, and it's we have found dealing with the commission, whether it be the Minnesota Commission or the Wisconsin Commission, what it weeds out the guys that don't really want to fight, that want to take the easy road, and it's probably the same guys that aren't training or don't have an affiliate gym that they're associated with. The guys that are here now and are going through the steps that it takes to get commissioned and licensed, they're ready to fight. They're all in.
Of course, some of the bigger fights that are going to be on this card, very excited. The pro debut of a local talent, Bobber Tatnan, of course, training at Inner Strength Martial Arts,
yes.
Went undefeated, defended his belt at 145 featherweight 3 times, I believe it was, and of course taking on a guy that I guess you would call him a local talent. He kind of started and got his teeth cut up here. He's down in the cities now, but Chris Hansman, and that should be just an exciting fight.
I can't wait, because it's just 2 super skilled guys in a lot of aspects. Sometimes we say, oh, this is a classic wrestler versus boxer,
right.
or that's really not the case with this fight. Both guys are really good across the board. Both nice strikers, both great jiu-jitsu guys. It's just going to be a great fight. I don't know what to tell you. I can't pick somebody.
Is this the toughest guy Bobber or Hansman have ever fought?
Oh, I think so. I think if you asked them the question, they'd probably tell you yes. I don't think neither one of them is probably going to publicly make a prediction on their fight. They might. I could be wrong, but I think they're both respectful of each other and from their talent, skill sets.
Another big fight we have, of course, another name from Inner Strength Martial Arts, Ben Pierre Saint. This guy, and I said this, when I first heard about this cat, I was kind of like, okay, well, you hear this. Oh, this guy's a great wrestler. He's their next big thing. everyone thinks they're the next big thing. All of a sudden, he starts winning a few matches, and then all of a sudden, he's going against a big name talent, knocks him out.
Yes.
And then you start realizing this cat's for real. You start watching him, and this guy is a tough dude at 135, fighting an undefeated Eli Finn at 4-0. That's a very exciting fight, too.
Yeah, I mean, both guys super good. I'm excited for this fight. Ben Pierre Saint is a stud. I mean, I don't think there's nothing you could say about him other than that. He is. You know, if you've watched any of that video on him, his last knockout was in
7-8
seconds against a stellar opponent.
Right.
And he's the real deal, you know. And this is going to be a nice test for him. I'm pumped to have him on the card.
Another fight that I love the guys down at the Cellar. I think Chris has done a great job with his team. And of course, Marcelo Nunes is going to be on the card. This guy, he went 1-0 as an amateur, and it pretty much came to the point where I was like, you probably should go pro.
Right.
And then he goes pro. He goes 1-0 as a pro. This will be his second fight. Marcelo Nunes is a guy that if I had to put money on someone that I could see at the next level rapidly, it would be this guy.
Right, and I would agree with you. There's lots of guys that think they're ready to go to the next level, and we maybe behind the scenes say, no, you're not. This is the guy that you could see fighting in Bellator or the UFC or any of the other large companies that are out there. He's the real deal. He's the real deal. The first time I watched him fight, chills. That's, if I had a one-word answer, was chills. It just brought chills to my spine. Guy is so talented, so strong, so athletic, and he was fearless.
You know, and it was one of those things. I remember talking to his opponent, and I said, look, I want to be honest with you. And look, at Fearless Fighting Championship, one thing that we make sure of, if we see an opponent that is obviously someone that you might want to say, hey, look, this guy is very talented at this. Are you sure you want this fight? You know, Marcelo Nunes is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he's not a guy you want to mess with. And we told his opponent, you may not want to go on the ground with this one, and which we all thought would have been the smart advice.
Yes.
Marcelo Nunes stood on his feet and released kicks that would make an elephant drop. I mean, it was ridiculous. I remember looking across the cage at your face, and you were like, "Oh."
I felt bad, and the guy he fought is Eric. Eric is a tough guy, and he just chopped him down like he was chopping down a tree with kicks to the midsection and legs, and punches and bunches. And I just, after that, I thought, holy cow, who's ever going to fight this guy? And that's kind of been the case, because we've had several cards since that we've tried finding Marcelo fights for. No one wants to fight this dude. No one wants. There's pros that don't want to fight this dude, and he has 0 pro fights. He's the real deal, and he almost has to be on a fast track, because nobody that is questionable in any aspect of their game is going to take a fight against this guy.
You see that a lot. I mean, you really do. You see that a lot with guys that start building up a nice record and they start showing what they can do in the ring. It gets harder and harder for them to find fights. I mean, it happens all the time. I think that happened this weekend with the UFC. You know, they got this gentleman, I believe his name is Pat Cummings.
Pat Cummings, yes. Great example.
He hasn't fought in 9 months, and people are calling him a bum, but, well, he's a national wrestler. He went to Penn State. I mean, the guy was an amazing wrestler. He wrestled with the Olympic alternate teams. And here's a guy that you can't find a fight for. But because he's 4-0, they think he's a bum.
That's just it. People behind the scenes don't realize that you build a name for yourself, and all of a sudden you can't find fights. Some guys go extinct for a year at a time because they don't get anybody to fight them. This guy got the break of his life, getting called up to the UFC to fight Cormier this weekend.
Yeah,
so
it should be great.
It's going to be interesting to see how he does.
Another title fight, and to point out, the Ben Pierre Saint Eli Finn is actually going to be a title fight as well. On the amateur side, I'm really excited about this guy. Travis Turk will be fighting Curtis Richard, who, it's funny because Travis is one of those guys, and I'll be honest, when you first meet him, you're like, this guy, I don't even want to talk to him. He's a little cocky. He's a little full of himself. But I think you kind of need that when you get into the cage. And the more you get to know the guy, you realize, you know, he's just a nice guy. He's a tough dude. And you know, by looking at him, you don't think he's as tough as he is, but he has one of those perfect builds for MMA.
He's built for it.
And people out there that maybe don't follow the sport as much, you would think an MMA person is someone just shredded. I mean, those guys are nice, but it takes a lot of oxygen to fuel those muscles.
Yes.
And Travis is one of those lean guys that's long. It's dangerous knees, dangerous fists, and he trains up with the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
And those guys work hard.
Yep, trains at the great camp, and I think Travis has fought for us 2 or 3, maybe 4 times, and he's always impressed me. Just a big heart, and he comes out to win. As we talked about earlier, he doesn't come out to not lose. He comes out to win. Probably one of the scariest knockouts in FFC history was Travis Turk against Nick Spina with a knee.
A knee to the right to the nose.
And it was very scary. There was a lot of quiet people in the audience for some time. So,
and the guy he's fighting, Curtis Richard, young kid, 18 years old. He's 2-1, actually making his United States debut. He trains up in Thunder Bay, and his coach called and said, "Hey, look, this guy is the real deal." He trains down in Las Vegas every once in a while with the UFC camps down there. He's young, but we want to step up competition. And it's funny because I went and looked the guy up, and it's another one of those examples. You see him, and you're like, you look like you could be my son. You're that young looking. But another tough guy that's very talented on his feet, and he's been training jiu-jitsu for quite some time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's going to have his hands full, Travis, I can tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely he will. And like we said, we're talking about Fearless Fighting Championship 15, which of course is happening April the 12th out at Westman Arena in Superior, Wisconsin. Tickets are on sale for that.
Yes,
right
they
now.
are on sale. Tickets of all levels, front row seats, front row VIP tables. Something new this show, and probably something I can see us continuing in the future, is we are offering military tickets for our armed forces members. Those have to be bought at the Wide World of Wings in Superior at 5729 Tower, but come in and get the tickets there.
Absolutely, and there's also a student section that you guys are doing this year as well.
Yep, and that is, again, the student section and military tickets are one and the same, and they are reduced prices for $25 tickets for the show. So,
is one of the good things, and I don't mean to sound mean when I say this, but one of the very nice things about being able to now branch off and go to Westman and kind of be out of Black Bear is the fact now we have a chance to actually expand the show a little bit. And that means we start out with weigh-ins on April the 11th out at the Other Place Bar and Grill off Calvary Road in Duluth. And this is a great chance for people to come out and watch the weigh-ins, because there's a lot of action that goes on in the weigh-ins.
There is.
You see a lot of tough stare downs. Yep. And you got to think a lot of these guys are hungry.
Yep.
They're mad because they haven't eaten in a week. They've been dieting, they've been training, and now they get to really look at their opponent for the first time, and it can get interesting.
Well, weigh-ins for me is if we have a fight every 3 months, it's my worst day in 3 months. Not because I haven't eaten, but because all these guys around me haven't eaten, and they're cranky and they're rude, and they're short with us, and we've got certain things we need to get accomplished with them and paperwork and some of the legalities, and they're just not fun to deal with. So I can't wait till weigh-ins are over. Yeah. I love them, but I can't wait till they're over and we can get to the fights.
Yeah, so absolutely, 6 o'clock on Friday, April the 11th, the Other Place Bar and Grill. Great place for food and, of course, live entertainment every weekend. We invite you to come on out for the weigh-ins. And then afterwards, on April 12th, after the fights, we're actually going to be out at the Ugly Stick Saloon for the after-hours party.
Which is another kind of sponsor for Fearless Fighting. So we'd like to get everybody there and show them what FFC is all about and bring the fan support down and drink some beers.
Absolutely. And, of course, we just highlighted a few of our fights, but as of right now, we're sitting at right around 20 fights for this show.
Yeah, huge card. We could go on, but there's so many great matchups and so many great fights. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a great night, and it's going to be real fun to be back inside the cage and really welcoming the fans. Because one of the things, like you said, there's people that follow FFC and have followed us since day one.
Yes.
And it's pretty nice. You make some really nice connections with some of the fans that really come to the shows.
Yeah, we've got some Facebook friends that are in continuous contact with us between fights. When's the next fight? Who's on the card? Where is it at? And they're the same people since FFC 1 back in 2009, so they're still following us, and it's just growing. Our fan outreach has just grown.
And as far as Westman Arena actually goes, what is the seating capacity in there, so we know to tell people to get in there and actually get their tickets?
Yeah, we can seat probably close to 3,000 people with the floor seating and the stepped up seating. It's a huge arena. And it's honestly, I've said this, it's a great venue for fights because everything's stepped up. So even your general admission tickets have great views of the cage, and nothing's very far away. So it's an awesome venue.
It's going to be a lot of fun. As we get set to wrap things up here on the Fearless 30 on Cat 7, brought to you by friends over at Wide World of Wings. Before we go, we're going to play a little word association.
Absolutely. I'm gonna. This is from me to you.
For me, okay. Oh, here we go.
So what I would like to do is throughout our little 30-minute vignettes here is just to play a little word game. I'm going to give you the name of a person, a place, or a thing, and I want you to give me a one-word answer.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we're going to start this off. Number one is, and be careful what you say. Number one, Tat Romero.
Classy. Tat is one of the classiest guys I've ever worked with. When I first started, when you guys first brought me on here, I was actually really nervous about talking to Tat. I know
he's
you
an
dealt
intimidating
with him.
guy.
He's a very intimidating guy.
Yeah.
And then once you get to know him, one of the nicest guys
Absolutely.
you'll ever want to talk to, and
Yep.
one of the easiest camps you'll ever work with.
Yep.
So if you're ever looking to book a fight out of the Wolfpack, it's definitely the place to go. So classy would be the word for Tat.
Perfect. Number two,
All right.
Ronda Rousey.
Oh man, my gut wants to say overrated.
Overrated.
I don't want to say she's over. You know what? I'm gonna take that back. She's confident.
Okay.
Very confident. So
All right.
I'll give you confident.
All right. Number three, Hoist Gracie.
Absolute legend.
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 Couldn't agree more.
period.
Couldn't agree more. This one will be interesting.
Okay.
Number four, Dana White.
Genius. Marketing genius. I know it's one word, but marketing genius.
Yes.
I mean, for what he's done with mixed martial arts, you may
Yep.
hate him, but
Yep.
if it wasn't for Dana White,
I agree,
we wouldn't be here today.
100%. And last but not least, FFC.
Grateful. FFC gave me a chance. You guys took a big chance on me bringing me in as a ring announcer, and it's kind of grown over that. And,
Yeah.
I've said it off the air 100 times, and I know people out there that are probably watching this going to go, well, of course you're going to say that they pay you. But, very grateful.
No, and we're happy to have you, my friend.
Well, there you go. We tried to make it happen. We'll get better as the shows roll on. Of course, we are scheduled to sit down and talk to a few of the fighters, so make sure you keep it here on Cat 7 as we'll be doing these shows more and more often. And also, we will be filming live at the weigh-ins on April the 11th out at the Other Place Bar. So for our engineer, Eric Lippinen, and for Cat 7, and thank you so much, Doug Burr, for joining us. Thank you for the very first edition of the Fearless 30 right here in Cat 7.